So the whole arichas that we had was about this phenomena called Shechina, which is the center of the world or the worlds. And you notice that the Rebbe repeatedly refers to it as being in a state of Gilui. Why do you refer to it as being in a state of Gilui? Because it's Malchus. It's the way it's Reishis Gilui Ein Sof. Even though Taka, it's Mahus V'Atzmos Ein Sof, it's unchanged. Like the muscle of the whole neshama coming into the brain, but it's Gilui. Now the Rebbe is going to speak about the higher Madrege, which has so far not been discussed, and that is that the Madrege of Shechina, which is not Begili, it's called Alma de Eskaseh, which is not Nimshech and Malchus. And as I told you at the beginning in Perek Nanav, it's represented not by the Teire, but by the Luchas Habris. V'hine. Perek Nechimel V'hine. Kisho Yabay Station Kai. In the first place, I make the stood. Shabo Yahya Ha'oren Va'luches. And in the first place, I make there was the Holy Ark and the Luchas, the tablets. The Beis Kedesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. It's like the Rebbe Hoyis HaShechina. The Madreg of Shechina Shehi, which as we discussed before, is called Malchus Datzilus. Shei Bechinas Gili Ein Sei Baruch Hu is the level of Ein Sof. Reishis is Gal Ein Sof. The beginning of the revelation of Ein Sof. That even though it's Mahus V'Yatzmos Ein Sof in an unchanged way, but it's called Gilui because it's coming into Malchus. Says the Rebbe, but in the first place, the Luchas were there. Shei Shama Mulubesh as Baseres Adibis. The Shechina was manifest in the Holy of Holies, in the Holy Ark, and in the Baseres Adibis, in the Ten Commandments. But the way the Shechina was in the Baseres Adibis, it was B'Yeser Seis. V'Yeser Oz was more weight and more power. Begili Rabbi Yotzim with the revelation which is greater and more intense. Yoser Migiluye even more than its revelation. Beicholotz of Kedesh Kadoshim Shalamayla, the chambers of the Holy of Holies above, Be'el Masayenim and the higher worlds. Now I'm going to make a proposition, but I'm not sure. We have two madreges of Teda. We have the Teda, the way it's Nimshach into Malchus called Shechina. And we have a Teda which is in the Kedesh HaKadoshim. Kedesh HaKadoshim is the Chabad of each world. So to put it in context, the Teda goes into the Chabad of Atzilus. Then when it comes into Malchus of Atzilus, we call it Shechina at that point. We call it Gili at that point. And then Shechina, as I discussed yesterday, creates the world of Atzilus. It creates the Nevrayim of Atzilus and the Spheres of Bria. So the Teda begins in the Kedesh HaKadoshim of Bria, then it goes into Malchus of Bria, and so forth. That's how it goes in each world, as we discussed. The Luches are not like Shechina, which is in Malchus. And it's not even like Shechina the way it's in Heichel, Kedesh Kadoshim Shalamayla, which would be the Chabad. It's even higher than the way the Shechina is Mislavish in Chabad. But let's see what happens. Ki Aseres Adib is the Ten Commandments. Hem calls the Teda called. They represent the entirety of the Teda as it exists in essence state. The Nafka that manifests Migu Chochmei Law from the source of Chochmei Law, the higher Chochmah. The La'ela, La'ela, Miyali Dizgalia, which is higher and even higher than Alma Dizgalia. What's Alma Dizgalia? Malchus, which is called Shechina, and Matronis, and Knesset Yisrael, and Emabonim, and Ematata, and so forth and so on. That's the Gilui of Mahus V'Atzmos Ein Sof, or what's called Reishis is Gal Ein Sof. In the Luches, you have the way it is in Chochmah, which is higher than Gilui.
Chochmah Law is higher than
Malchus of Atzilus. Chochmah Law is Chochmah of Atzilus, and perhaps it's even higher than Chochmah of Atzilus. In other words, you have two madreges. Okay, Kedesh Kadoshim in each world is the Chabad. Malchus of each world is the Shechina. The idea that the Teda is Begilui is because it's called Shechina, because it comes into Malchus. Now Malchus is a Lakus, the Malchus of each world, that creates the world. So you have essentially like this: the way Teda comes into Malchus is called Alma Dizgalia. The way Teda is in Kedesh Kadoshim, which is Chabad, it's not yet Alma Dizgalia. Now, the Luchas is at least the Madrega of Kedesh HaKadoshim, it's the Madrega of Chabad. But from the language here, you could say that the Luchas are not only higher than Shechina, in other words, the way the Teda comes into Malchus, but it's even higher when Teda is in Chabad. It's only Chochmei Law, or higher than Atzilus. But this second prat, I'm not sure. In other words, is the Luchas one Madrega removed from Shechina, or two Madregas removed? Is the same Madrega, Right, but he also says that it's higher than Echolos Kedesh Kadoshim. The Kedesh Kadoshim is Chabad. Side you're going to say that Chochmah is separate and Bina and Das is separate. So let's go weiter. But you have to remember, there's a catch about the Luchas. That is that they're carved into a physical stone. So here you have an unbelievable jump. It's not the way the Teda is Mislavish in Malchus, which is a Ruchnistic, a godly Keli Sfira. In a particular world, is coming into a physical stone. And in order for Chochmei Law, which is higher than Shechina, higher than Mahus V'Atzmos Ein Sof in a state of Gilui, but rather the way it's in a state of Alma Dizgalia, should come down into an actual physical stone. is lay yardim madrega madrega gederech hashtalshos elamas. It cannot possibly pass through from step to step according to the chain reaction of worlds. Ad elamaz hagashmi, till it arrives in the physical world. Elamaz hagashmi, this physical earth, is misnahig b'slapshus ateva. Hagashmi is conducting itself in a way of his slapshus, which means gilui and simtzum. Every revelation means simtzum of teva hagashmi, of physical nature. V'aluches ma'aseh elikim heima. The luches, on the other hand, although they're physical, but they don't have any physical properties. They don't have any physical limitations. Why? Ma'aseh elikim heima, the Eibishter made them himself. Michtav elikim hu, and the writing on the luches is the writing of the Eibishter. Now, which is lamayla me'ateva shel elam hazeh hagashmi, completely above the nature of this physical world. Hanishpa, that this physical world flows me'haras hashchina, from the light of the Shechina, which is in Malchus of Atzilus, but the way the Shechina of Malchus of Atzilus is Shebeheichel Kiddush Kedoshim Da'asiyah, that comes down to the Chabad of Asiyah, and then from Chabad of Asiyah to Malchus of Asiyah, and that's how we have our existence. Shemimena, that from her, Nim Shechei V'chayis, their light and life is drawn, Le'elam Asiyah, to the world, which means the Ruchni is the world of Asiyah, Shegam Elam Hazeh B'chlol, that also the physical Asiyah is included. You see, the Rebbe says like this: we know that each world has a primus and a chitzenius, a godly dimension and a worldly dimension. What's the godly dimension? The Esesphiris. The Chabad of the godly dimension is called Kiddush Kadosh. The Malchus of the godly dimension is called Shechina, Eimetator, Matru Nisa, Knesset Yisrael, Eimabonim. And that's what we've been learning about in these three parakim. Shechina. What's the Nekuda? That even though we're dealing with Muhus V'Yatzma Ein Sof, it's called Reshus Esgalas Ein Sof. Right? That's the way it works. So how does it work? The Shechina of a given world, the Malchus of a Lakus, the Sfiras, creates its own world, and the Torah and the Evraim of that world, and the Sfiras, the Kiddush Kodashim of the next world. The Malchus of the next world is going to create its own world, the Torah and the Evraim, Malachim and the Shomas of that world, and the Sfiras, the Kiddush Kodashim of the next world, till Malchus. The Malchus, right? So how does it work? Malchus of Atzilus creates the Kiddush Kodashim of Bria, which creates Malchus of Bria, which creates the world of Bria and so forth. That then creates the Kiddush Kodashim of Yetzirah, which creates Malchus of Yetzirah, which is called Shechina. This physical earth is part of Asiyah. The Eibishter takes Chayes from Malchus of Atzilus, which is called Shechina, and is mislabish it in Kiddush Kodashim of Asiyah, which is Chabad of Asiyah. Then it comes on into the Malchus of Asiyah. And from Malchus of Asiyah, the creation of the Ruchni is the Asiyah, as well as the Gashmi the Asiyah. So even though every world is getting Chayes from Kedusha, right? Because we're saying like the mush of the brain, the whole neshama is in the brain, the whole alakus is in each world. Where is it in each world? In the Shechina, in the Kiddush Kodashim. No, not in the Kiddush Kodashim. Kiddush Kodashim is Chabad. In the Shechina, in Malchus, that's why it's called Gilui. Reshus is Gal saying itself. Kiddush Kodashim is a higher madrega. It comes through Kiddush Kodashim and ends up in Malchus, and that's the pshat that's called his Galus. Even though it's Ein Sof, it's an unchanged way, but it's even his Galus.
Which one's the brain, the Malchus or the
Kiddush Kodashim? Oh, the whole, yeah. The whole vart is that Malchus is the brain, but the Gili of the brain. Kiddush Kodashim, I suppose, would be the Helam of the brain. So there's Ishtalshalos. Even though it's godliness, but because the godliness is going through steps, it creates tiviistic worlds. When you talk about the Luchas, what's happening? Chochma Vatzilas is coming directly to the physical goof, no teva, no ishtasus, no steps. Says the Rebbe Ella, how are the Luchas created? That Bechin is Chochma Elad Atzilas, the Chochma Atzilas itself. Sheiklos HaTeira, which is Teira as a whole. Shabayuda Dibris, the 10 Dibris. Nislap Shabamalchus, the Atzilas, or the Bria Levada, goes only into the Malchus of Atzilus and the Malchus of Bria, and doesn't go through the Malchus of Yetzirah and the Malchus of Asiyah. And Vehein Levadan, they alone, Ham Yechad is Beidin Sof Shabbateichon, Shabbateichon, which is inside of themselves. Hein Hanikrais, this is called B'Shem Shechina, the word, the name Shechina, Sheda, the Kedesh Kadashim, the Bayis Rish, which rested in the Holy of Holies in the first base of Mikdash. By manifesting the Yud HaDibros, the 10 Commandments, Hachakukis Beluchas Shabbat, which are carved into the Luchas which are in the Yadin, B'nei Somaisi Alakim Chaim, and a miracle into the act of the living God. And the Rebbe says, Hu Alma de Eskasia, this is considered the hidden world, Hamakana Be'el Mabri, which is in the world of Bria, Kanei, the Yedechen is knows to Mukabal. This vart about his slapshus only in Atzilas Bria, I don't understand. I don't know. But the point that he's saying is the Luchas are physical tablets, they come straight from Chochmei Law. They don't go through the slapshus of Malchus of Atzilas, Malchus of Bria, Malchus of Yetzirah, Malchus of Asiyah. They go through only Malchus of Atzilas and Malchus of Bria, and then they come straight to Asiyah Gashmi. Says the Rebbe, therefore, in the Luchas, there was a Gilui of Shechina, But not the Gili of Shechina, which is called Alma Dis Galia, Reishis Gal Severin Sof. A Gili of Shechina of Alma Dis Kasya, the level of godliness, which is above the Indian of Gili, even in Eifon Kloli, was revealed in the Luchas. So this diok about Elam Abriya is Dafan Vashem what das meant. It has to do with what's called in Kabbalah Chassidus Eimei Law. Even though Elam Abriya is Bina, but he really means Eimei Law, Bina of Atzilus, that the Eimei Law, Bina of Atzilus, is Megala Lakus. I guess the right language would be from Sevav Kalalman. It's not going through Hishtalshlus at all, but I don't know, I'm not sure about this. The bottom line is the following. That we know about the Hishtalshlus of Shechina, and now we're learning that the Luchas are a Lakus coming into Asiyah Hagashmis, not through the Hishtalshlus of Shechina, through a different process altogether. And there's a Giloy, again the Rebbe used the word Giloy, of a Lakus, which is Alma Deskasi, which is hidden and concealed. Now I want to tell you one detail that the Rebbe makes over here. That it says Haluchis Ma'aseh came of Michta Velikum. God made them and God wrote them. This is only true in the first Luchas. The second Luchas were not Ma'aseh Elokim. The second Luchas Moshe Rabbeinu made them and the Eibishter wrote them. And the Rebbe brings the lashon that's written in the pasuk by the first Luchas. On the Cheder in the Beis Hamikdash only the second Luchas. So if I'm not mistaken, the Rebbe says that as far as the Luchas are concerned, there was no difference in the first and second Luchas. The Gabi the Teira, there was like a chilik, but the Gabi the Luchas, the second Luchas, even though they were not Ma'aseh Elokim, was only Michtav Elikim and Chalas Al Luchas. Nevertheless, it had the milah that the first Luchas had. And like I said to you before, benegeh to the idea that it's Nimshach in Malchus of Atzilus and Malchus of Bria, and not the Malchus of Yitzir Nasiya, means to say that it's coming down like the Madrega of Bina Elul. We have the regular channel of Shechina, that although we're dealing with most of the Atmas and stuff, it's called Reishis Galas, and now we have an exceptional channel of Shechina. The exceptional channel of Shechina is the way you have a Madrega of Ein Sof, which is not his Galas, it's Helam. And the Helam itself is in a state of his Galas. This is only in the Luchas, because the Luchas bypass the Hishtalshlus. And I'm going to tell you what I think, that since Luchas are Chakika, they're carved, and carved is Kesed, which is higher than Atzilus. Since you're dealing with something which is Kesed, which is higher than Atzilus, Hishtalshlus doesn't affect it. And therefore, in effect, it comes straight into Asiyah. Okay?